This could be the biggest spiritual turning point of your life. And maybe you are only here because something inside you, that consciousness of the chosen ones that never shuts up, realizes that there is something wrong in the world. Do you feel that strange feeling that reality is not quite what it seems, that there is an invisible spiritual prison shaping thoughts, sabotaging emotions, and pushing you into a cycle of reincarnation that never resolves? Jesus knew this, and that is why he revealed a hidden teaching, kept far from the Gospels, capable of breaking the control of the Archons. Before moving on, tell me one thing: where are you watching this video from? Comment below. I want to see where God's chosen ones are, awakening throughout the world. The truth is that, on the night they came to look for Jesus, something happened that almost no one knows about. As the soldiers surrounded him, he called only those who were mature enough to hear a hidden teaching of Jesus's spiritual code, so powerful that it could destroy the entire energy harvesting system maintained by the Archons. A simple but deadly code for any structure based on fear, guilt, or control. And this is where the story begins to intertwine with yours. Because Jesus didn't deliver these words to a religious elite. He delivered them to those who carried a different frequency, a glow in the soul, a dormant creative consciousness. He delivered to people like you. If these words reached this far, believe me, it's no coincidence. Maybe your spiritual awakening is closer than you think, and maybe you're finally ready to remember who you really are. On that silent night, when the soldiers' heavy footsteps began to echo among the olive trees, Jesus realized that the moment had come. It was not a moment of fear, but of revelation. He knew that the Archons were already at work behind the scenes, strengthening their energy harvesting system around humanity. Therefore, he called his closest disciples closer, those who were considered chosen by God due to the strength of their frequency and the awakened consciousness that was beginning to emerge in them. It was time to deliver a hidden teaching of Jesus that could not be recorded in ordinary scriptures. As they approached, feeling the air almost tremble with tension, Jesus spoke with a calmness that contrasted with the surrounding scenery. He explained that the Archons were not mythical figures, but parasitic intelligences that operated in subtle ways, feeding on fear and guilt to keep humanity trapped in a controlled cycle of reincarnation. He said that spiritual prison was not made of physical bars, but of mistakes that were repeated life after life. And that behind every destructive doubt, there was the influence of these beings. The disciples were astonished, but attentive. Jesus then revealed that there was a way to break the Archons' control, something so simple that it became impossible to understand over the centuries. He spoke of a spiritual weapon so pure and direct that no layer of manipulation could resist it. This weapon, 2 words, accessed the creative consciousness that lives within the human being and dissolved any identification with the role of victim. It was like activating the name of God, I am, within one's own soul, awakening the strength that had been hidden by the false light and the memories erased between lives. Everyone held their breath. The Master made the disciples come even closer, as if every second could be the last. The torches approached, but he did not look away. Jesus explained that by uttering these 2 words with deep understanding, a person accessed their true I am state, breaking through the veil of the spiritual matrix. At that moment, identities imposed by the Archons fell apart, and that which was eternal emerged. He said that when the soldiers took him away, the disciples should not fear. They should practice these words before going to sleep, creating a spiritual shield that no Archon could overcome. The night was just beginning, and so was the revelation. When Jesus spoke about the Archons, he was not describing physical monsters or folkloric entities, but subtle intelligences that operate behind the scenes of reality. These beings feed on low frequencies, especially those created when a person believes they are separate from God, disconnected from their own I am. They manipulate emotions such as fear, guilt, and shame, as these vibrations are exactly the type of energy that sustains the energy harvesting system. It is a well-architected mechanism, functioning without most people realizing its existence. Jesus' Gnostic teachings explained that Archons act as parasites of consciousness, influencing thoughts to keep humans in a victim role. This prevents spiritual awakening and blocks the memory of one's own divine origin. When you think I'm worthless, I'm small, I don't deserve it, that voice is not yours. It's part of the spiritual prison built to keep you trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. They know that if the chosen ones fully awaken, the the entire system collapses, because creative consciousness begins to operate above illusions. This control system works like a great spiritual matrix, where dense emotions produce food and limiting beliefs ensure that the cycle continues. With each life, the memory is erased, not by supposed karma, but by a manipulation that makes it appear that each suffering is a necessary lesson. The truth, however, is quite different. The awakening of the consciousness of the chosen threatens to expose this false karma, making it clear that humanity is not trapped by destiny, but by conditioning. Jesus wanted each person to discover the inner freedom that was always there. Energy harvesting happens when a person identifies with repetitive patterns of suffering. Therefore, Archons encourage internal narratives of fear and failure, as these vibrations feed them. But when someone begins to remember their own I am state, when they activate the name of God I am within themselves, something changes, the frequency rises, and the food disappears. They simply cannot operate in the presence of true consciousness. This is exactly why the Archons and Chosen are eternally at odds. One's awakening is the other's undoing. The Archons have always had a specific fear, the conscience of the Chosen. These souls carry a higher frequency, an inner light that cannot be artificially created or manipulated. From an early age, people like this feel that they do not fully belong to the world, as if there was something greater waiting to be awakened. This feeling, which many try to silence, is exactly what the Archons try to suffocate, because they know that it only takes one chosen one to remember who they really are for the entire energy harvesting system to become fragile. When someone with this frequency begins spiritual awakening, the Archons intensify the mental influence, doubts, fears, feelings of inadequacy, night attacks, confusing dreams, and even sudden conflicts. It's not bad luck, it's strategy. God's chosen ones emit a light that they cannot bear, and that is why they try to divert them from the path by creating emotional and spiritual distractions. They act where it hurts self-esteem, relationships, purpose, and identity. Everything to prevent the I am from fully awakening. This targeted attack happens because the chosen ones carry a creative consciousness that is much more powerful than average. When a chosen one learns the hidden teaching of Jesus and stops seeing himself as a victim, the energetic current that feeds the Archons breaks instantly. What was once a source of food becomes a threat. Therefore, these people face more challenges, more confusion, and more interference in their thoughts, not because they are weak, but because they are too strong for the system to support. It's like trying to stifle a rising sun. And there is one detail that Jesus always made clear: Archons do not attack those who are asleep, they attack anyone who is about to wake up. If you feel like your life has been marked by deep internal struggles, existential crises, and a constant search for meaning, that's no coincidence, it's evidence. Archons and Chosen always recognize each other. And the greater your calling, the greater their effort to keep you trapped in the cycle of reincarnation and the spiritual prison of the mind. But it is precisely when this happens that the awakening of consciousness is closest. If these words are making sense to you, comment below, I am an awakening. This strengthens our chosen community and sends a clear signal to the algorithm that you are ready to remember what Jesus revealed that night. The spiritual prison built by the Archons does not look like chains or walls, but like thoughts that are repeated until they seem like absolute truths. They know that if they can influence the mind, they can influence everything. Therefore, they act mainly on the beliefs that shape their identity. I'm not enough, I can't do it, nothing works for me. These murmurs are part of the energy harvesting system, fueling the cycle of reincarnation and hiding Jesus' hidden teaching about the true nature of the I am. The prison is internal, but the effects are devastating. Unresolved traumas become gateways. Striking situations, especially in childhood, leave emotional gaps that Archons use to manipulate perception. They infiltrate what you believe to be your own inner voice, repeating self-sabotaging patterns that sap your energy. The person lives tired, without strength, full of doubts about themselves, not because they are weak, but because they are draining energy into a system that operates in silence. It's like carrying a weight you've never put on your shoulders. This false voice disguises itself so well that many go through life believing it is part of who they are. But when you begin to awaken consciousness, you realize that there is a point of observation within you that is never affected by fear. That point is the I am. He doesn't blame himself, he doesn't diminish himself, he doesn't compare himself. When you connect to this creative consciousness, you see the Archons trying to hide behind negative thoughts, like shadows running from the light. Spiritual awakening happens when you identify the imposter and reclaim your own power. Jesus knew that humanity would live trapped in these false narratives. He saw how the memory erased between lives would reinforce the idea that each suffering is karma or necessary lesson, when it is often just interference from a malicious system. When you recognize that the voice that diminishes you is not yours, something inside you expands. It is at this moment that the Archon's control begins to crumble because every invisible prison depends on the prisoner's ignorance. And when you wake up, it simply loses its meaning. When Jesus spoke of the cycle of reincarnation, he was not referring to a natural and sacred process, but to a system manipulated by Archons to keep souls trapped. He explained that, between one life and another, memory is purposely erased, creating the feeling that each return is a learning opportunity, when in fact it is part of a carefully structured spiritual prison. What they call karmic lessons are often nothing more than false lessons created to justify the repetition of suffering. Humanity has become so accustomed to this that it no longer questions it. According to the Gnostic teachings of Jesus, the so-called false light appears as an imitation of the divine, seductive and apparently loving, but which aims to attract the soul back to the cycle of energy harvesting. This light does not lead to the pleroma, to the true source, to the I Amit leads to another round of forgetfulness. The Archons built this system because they emotionally depend on the energy produced by unawakening souls. It's like a game where the board is invisible and the rules change just when you start to understand. Jesus warned his disciples that the princes of this world, an expression used to speak of Archons, would do everything to keep human beings believing that they are small, guilty, and eternally indebted to something. This victim mentality is what ensures the continuity of the spiritual matrix. But when the person awakens their creative consciousness and remembers that they are the image and expression of the I Am, the system loses strength. The soul that recognizes its divine identity no longer returns to the same place of spiritual submission, because it sees the mechanism behind the veil. And the most curious thing is that this awakening does not require complex rituals, requires lucidity. When you understand that you were not born to suffer, pay invented karmic debts, or repeat painful patterns, something inside you breaks, and it's not you, it's their control. Jesus saw all of this clearly and, therefore, gave the chosen ones that hidden teaching, the spiritual weapon capable of breaking the cycle. The conscience of the chosen ones, when activated, can no longer be deceived by the false light. She immediately recognizes the vibration of the real. Jesus always taught that reality responds to consciousness, and that every word spoken carries a vibrational weight capable of shaping what we experience. People don't realize it, but much of suffering comes from unconscious language. When someone says, "I can't, I'm a failure, I can never do it," they are programming their own mind to operate as a victim, not as a creator. Archons rely on exactly this habit to keep the energy harvesting system working. They influence thoughts so that you speak against yourself, without realizing that you are giving away your power. Words are like codes. Every sentence that comes out of your mouth confirms an identity. This is why Jesus' Gnostic teachings emphasized the importance of speaking from creative rather than controlled consciousness. Words can act as a spiritual prison or as a spiritual liberation. It depends on the source from which they emerge. When you speak something out of fear, the vibration feeds the Archons. When pronounced from the I Am, the vibration dissolves the spiritual matrix. It's simple, but not obvious. Many people ask why Jesus gave so much importance to the way a person expresses themselves. It's because he knew that identities are built by repeating phrases. You don't become a victim because of the circumstances, but because of the way you narrate your life. This mechanism is so powerful that Archons use it as their main tool to shape consciousness without anyone noticing. All it takes is for a person to repeat an internal lie long enough for it to become an emotional fact. And at that point, the prison is complete. But the opposite is also true. When someone begins to utter words aligned with the I Am, especially the pure state of I Am, the programming changes. The vibration rises, and creative consciousness takes over. Reality responds differently, because it stops being shaped by fear and begins to be shaped by divine identity. Jesus said that when the Word is born from internal truth, nothing can stop it. It becomes a code that pierces shadows, shatters illusions, and breaks the Archons' control. Liberation begins in the mouth, but is born in the spirit. When Jesus called the closest disciples that night, he knew time was short. Therefore, he got straight to the point. He revealed that the greatest spiritual weapon was not a sword, nor a complicated ritual, but 2 words that carried the power of the very name of God, I am. He explained that I am was not a common phrase, but rather the purest vibration. There is the original identity of the soul before any influence from the Archons. By pronouncing it with awareness, the person accesses their true essence, the one that cannot be manipulated. Jesus also explained that Archons construct false identities to keep humans trapped. I am insecure, I am weak, I am guilty. Every time you complete an I am with something negative, you reinforce a spiritual matrix programming. But when you just pronounce I am, without completing it, you destroy all these imposed identities. Pure I am dissolves masks, stories, traumas, limiting beliefs, everything that keeps you within the cycle of reincarnation. It's like turning off the system for a few seconds. He said that I am is what remains when you abandon all the characters you believe you are. It is the creative consciousness. It is the state of the chosen one before being fragmented by the false light. Jesus' Gnostic teachings made his disciples realize that there was nothing more powerful than remembering their own formless existence. Archons cannot touch this state because it is outside their frequency. It's like trying to put out the sun with a flashlight. I am is pure present, simple, invincible, and impossible to corrupt. In revealing this, Jesus stated that whoever practices the I am regularly creates a spiritual shield that prevents any interference with thoughts. He said that before bed was the most powerful time, because the mind enters a receptive state and subtle influences become more accessible. Pronouncing I am there is like declaring to the universe, I return to my original identity. The disciples felt the weight of the revelation, not of fear, but of spiritual liberation. They finally understood how to break the control of the Archons and leave the spiritual matrix. If this revelation touched you, comment below I am light. This way we strengthen the awakening of the chosen ones and spread this frequency to those who are still asleep. Jesus taught that the practice of I am did not depend on physical strength, ritual, or special setting. It just depended on presence. He advised that before pronouncing the words, the person should remain internally silent, like someone listening to something that comes from far away. This silence doesn't have to be perfect, just be sincere. It's like when you take a deep breath before making an important decision, there's an instant of clarity where everything becomes more accessible. It is in this interval that the I am begins to manifest. After silence comes feeling. Jesus said that I am is not just spoken, it is felt in the body. It's like perceiving your own existence without needing to think about it. You don't need to visualize anything, you don't need to imagine light, you don't need to repeat long sentences. Just recognize I exist. This is the field where the spiritual weapon works. When a person feels his own presence, the Archons have nowhere to hide, because creative consciousness begins to illuminate every corner of the mind. There is no trick, there is remembering. The pronunciation of I am should be simple and direct. Jesus warned the disciples not to complete the words with anything neither positive nor negative. Just I am. Completing I am with any label creates identity, and identities are moldable by Archons. But pure I am is indomitable. Speak slowly, with intention, as if you are affirming something eternal. It's not shouting, it's not whispering, is to declare. And most importantly, do this with awareness. You are not calling out to God, you are activating the name of God I am within yourself. After pronouncing, do not move immediately. Remain still for a few seconds. Jesus said that this is the moment when energy expands and creates the spiritual shield that prevents interference during sleep. It is as if the spirit takes a deep breath and the body relaxes in response. Many people feel warmth in their chest, lightness in their forehead, or their mind becoming quieter. These are natural signs of alignment. Over time, this practice becomes a habit that strengthens spiritual awakening and weakens every temptation of the spiritual matrix. When someone utters I am with full awareness, something subtle yet powerful begins to happen. The first change is usually internal. The mind loses speed, as if someone has turned off the background noise that has always been there. This silence is not empty, it is presence. Jesus explained that this state reveals the separation between you and the thoughts manipulated by the Archons. It is as if, for a few moments, the spiritual prison ran out of energy to continue functioning. The person realizes that there is something in themselves that has never been touched. The second effect appears in the body. Many describe a slight expansion in the chest, spontaneous relaxation, or a feeling of air going deeper. This happens because I am removes consciousness from the victim identity, the one that feeds the energy harvesting system, and returns the original vibration of creative consciousness to you. When this occurs, the energy draining tubes that the Archons use begin to rupture. The soul breathes a sigh of relief, literally. The body reacts to spiritual liberation even before the mind understands. But perhaps the most profound effect happens in the following days. Jesus taught that after a true awakening of the I Am, the Archons attempt to test the person over the next 24 to 48 hours. Strange thoughts, sudden doubts, painful memories, or emotions that seem to appear out of nowhere may arise. It's not regression, it's system resistance. They test to see if you return to your old identity or stay firm in your frequency. If you maintain I Am, the spiritual matrix quickly loses strength. Testing is a sign of progress, not regression. And then something unexpected appears: greater clarity, synchronicities, ease of perceiving internal sabotage, and even more lucid dreams. It's as if a fog began to dissipate, revealing paths that were always there, but were hidden. The awakening of the consciousness of the chosen ones accelerates when the person continues to practice the I Am before going to sleep. The I Am becomes a natural spiritual shield, and what once seemed impossible becomes simple. Jesus said the truth will set you free, and I Am is the door to that truth. If you felt any of these signs, comment below I am conscious. This strengthens your alignment and helps other chosen ones recognize their own awakening. Once I Am becomes a natural part of your life, reality begins to respond in ways that once seemed coincidental. Small synchronicities begin to appear: conversations that arrive at the right time, unexpected encounters, intuitions that make sense. It's not magic, it's alignment. Jesus said that when the consciousness of the chosen one stabilizes, it stops attracting situations based on fear and starts attracting experiences aligned with the I Am. Reality becomes more fluid because the energy harvesting system no longer influences you as it used to. Another aspect that changes is the perception of community. The chosen ones begin to recognize themselves in each other. There is a shine in the eyes, a greater sensitivity, a silent understanding. People you never imagined come into your life with messages, support, or even stories similar to yours. This process is not random, it is part of the network of awakenings that Jesus predicted. When a chosen one awakens, the vibration echoes like a call, and others begin to remember as well. It is a silent but powerful current, as if a spiritual magnet pulling consciousnesses in the same direction. With awakening, the person also realizes that reality responds faster to intentions. This happens because, when living in the I Am state, you stop acting like a victim and start acting like a creator. Thoughts become clearer, choices more intuitive, and the heart lighter. Jesus explained that this was the true purpose of Gnosis: to remember that human consciousness is creative, not reactive. When you align with your own God name I Am, the spiritual matrix loses the ability to distort your perception. Finally, Jesus reinforced that the practice must be daily. Not as an obligation, but as an alignment. Pronouncing I Am before going to sleep keeps the spiritual shield strong and prevents nocturnal interference from Archons. Furthermore, it strengthens the awakening of consciousness each night, accumulating clarity and protection. The life of the chosen one, then, stops being marked by fear and starts to be guided by presence. And, over time, this presence transforms everything: relationships, decisions, energy, identity. It is the beginning of a new way of existing, simple, profound, and liberating. Now that you have walked through each part of this revelation, the question that remains is not about the Archons, not even about the energy harvesting system, but about you. What will you do with this knowledge? Because the truth is that spiritual awakening doesn't happen when you listen to something profound. It happens when you decide to live according to the consciousness that has arisen within you. And maybe, just maybe, this is the first time in a long time that your soul has remembered the I am so clearly. Ask yourself, who have I been, victim or creator? What stories have I been telling myself that no longer make sense for my journey? And most importantly, what changes in my life when I start acting, thinking, and feeling from I am? Jesus knew that each chosen one would reach this point the moment when information becomes spiritual responsibility. Not in the sense of weight, but on purpose. When you remember who you are, everything starts to reorganize around your relationships, intuitions, decisions, paths. The spiritual matrix loses strength in the face of creative consciousness. And every night you say, I am before bed is a firm step away from the old cycle of reincarnation and closer to the freedom that has always been yours. So, take this teaching with you. Nothing changes until you change your vibration. And nothing changes your vibration as profoundly as remembering the name of God, I am, within you. This simple practice can transform your perception, your energy, and your destiny. And now that you know this, what will you choose to do today? Who do you decide to be from now on? If this content awakened you, strengthened you, or brought you clarity, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue walking with me. Here, each video is an additional piece in this awakening, and you deserve to access everything your soul has always known.